today's episode of Ben Yomo, we're going to talk about kashering stovetops, ovens, and microwaves. Kashering a stovetop is pretty clear in Shulchan Aruch that it's a din of a chatzuva, and therefore it needs libun kal. We got to heat it up so it'll burn straw or paper. If you have an old-fashioned electric stovetop, you turn it on till it's red, and it's going to be kashered. That means the burners are going to be kashered. If you have a gas stovetop with grates, make sure the grates are clean and put them in the oven while you're kashering your oven, and you'll definitely get libun kal. However, if you have a glass top stovetop, it's not that simple. The burners themselves can be raised to a level of libun kal easily by turning them on and leaving them on for a while, and they're going to be hot enough to burn straw or paper. However, beyond the burners, it's difficult to raise to that temperature. Using a blowtorch is a reliable way to heat it beyond 500 degrees, but will also reliably damage it or destroy it. So how are we going to deal with the glass stovetop? If you're a Sephardi, glass can never become treif. As long as it's clean, your stovetop is going to be kosher. However, Ashkenazim, who follow the position of Rabbeinu Yechiel Paris, that holds that glass is like a klicheres, are challenged to kasher the stovetop. Effectively, in order to use the stovetop, your pots should not touch the burners beyond the space where the fire goes. So, if you have pots that are the size of the burner or smaller, you don't have a problem. However, if you have pots that are larger and you want to use them, you got to get something that'll raise the pot off the stovetop and still heat it, like a heat diffuser or some other item that is sold to keep your stovetop clean, and your glass cooktop can be used on Pesach or in a situation where you need it to kasher it. It's generally accepted that kashering an oven with libun kal is enough, and therefore raising our ovens to a temperature of about 500 degrees for 45 minutes will reliably kasher our ovens. They do need to be clean in advance, but once they're clean and they reach 500 degrees, they're going to be kosher.
The shir libun kal, Chazal tell us, is kash nisraf alav mibachutz. HaRav Heinemann, Shlita, is of the opinion that to do something mibachutz nowadays is because the prototype case that is being discussed by Chazal is you have an earthenware oven that you heat up to such a temperature that in case you put a piece of straw on the outside, that the straw gets singed. Our ovens are all insulated, double-walled, and so on and so forth, so you're not going to have anything that's going to be nisraf alav mibachutz unless you want the fire department to be there every night. So what Rav Heinemann says is that you can assume that if it gets to a temperature that it's going to be nisraf mibifnim after you open the door and shove a piece of paper or a rolled up piece of newspaper against it, if that paper will get singed, then that is, we can assume that that's a shear of kash nisraf alav mibachutz. Now, paper ignites at 451 degrees, so you would have to assume that the temperature is not less than 450, 451, somewhere in that neighborhood. Now, when you set a temperature setting on your oven, to say you set it at 450, it's not going to necessarily stay at 450. What it does is it cycles to go up to 455, down to 445, and then back up to 455, and that's what it's going to call 450 because that's the average temperature that it's cycling between. Generally, when we tell people to kasher an oven for libun kal, we tell them to go much higher. We tell them to go for like neighborhood 550.
Many people have self-clean ovens, which clean the oven and kasher it at the same time. But self-clean ovens are not as simple as they used to be. More and more manufacturers have noticed that self-cleaning cycles destroy ovens and have changed their ovens to steam self-cleans, which are far below the temperature of libun kal. And therefore, if you have a steam self-clean oven, you need to clean the oven and then kasher it at the highest temperature of 500 or 550 degrees for at least 45 minutes. It's also very important to remember safety. If your oven is very dirty and you run a self-clean cycle, you can end up with a giant fire. So clean your oven beforehand. In that case, you need to remember to use an oven cleaner that's made specially for the type of oven that you have. Otherwise, your oven cleaner can remove the coatings that are put on the walls of the oven to help the food residue release from your oven. If for some reason you can't or don't want to kasher your oven, there's a simple solution: double wrapping. Now, it's important to remember that double wrapping means 2 wrappings, not one long piece of aluminum foil, but 2 pieces, for example, of aluminum foil that completely surround your pan. Now, kashering a microwave is something that we run into all the time. We might run into it when somebody makes a mistake in our kitchen. We might run into it in a hotel room or on a trip.
Microwaves work in a really interesting way. They cook the food from the inside out. How does that happen? The microwave shoots electromagnetic waves from the magnetron into the body of the microwave, and the water wants to go in the same direction as the microwave. But the microwaves are coming from all directions, so the water keeps spinning faster and faster and faster until it boils over. So there's no heating element in the microwave. The entire heat in the microwave comes solely from the food that's being cooked. A convection microwave, despite its name, is not a microwave. It's a convection oven with a microwave attached. So if you're going to kasher it, you have to kasher it exactly like a regular oven.
So how do we kasher a microwave? If you boil water for a long time inside of it so the condensate collects on the walls, 5 or 6 minutes, then you could imagine that you did kabbalah kachpolte. But what about if the rest of the oven is made out of a non-kasherable material?
The inside of the microwave is metal. It has to be metal in order to reflect the microwaves. However, the food-facing surface is not usually metal. It's usually either has an enamel coat or it's plastic. Not everyone agrees that it can be kashered.
It's important to know that many microwaves, even most microwaves, possibly never become treif. Usually a low-power microwave that you find in a hotel room or something like that is not going to heat the walls of the microwave hot enough to actually create treif. A practical way to determine whether the walls of the microwave get hot during cooking and create a kashrus issue is by cooking an open-faced potato in the microwave until it's ready. We're going to see if the potato will make the microwave's walls hot enough that they're yadza lettuce bowl. Now let's see if this microwave is really hot. So I'll put my hand on the top of the microwave and hold it there for a long time. Not too hot. Ow, the potato is hot! However, the glass plate is not going to be kasherable for Ashkenazim. Will have to be covered or removed. It's hard to recommend for people to bake a potato every time they come to a hotel room to check if their microwave became treif or not. So it's a good idea to double wrap your stuff when you're on a short trip.
He had a very interesting shita that he held that you can kasher an oven even though that an oven needs libun. He said that you can kasher it with kabbalah kapalto, which means that if you have to clean it, that's for sure. After you've cleaned it, if you don't use the oven at more than 450 degrees or 400 degrees, which is not usually used at more than the 400 degrees, then you only have to put on the heat to 400 degrees in order to kasher it. You say kabbalah kapalta by libun also, which is not agreed by all the poskim because the pashla pshat is that there are two ways of kashering. One is with hot water, and in that case the issa goes into the water, so then you're drawing out the issa. But when you're using libun, it doesn't come out. Where's it going to go out to? What you're doing is you're burning up the issa. So burnt issa is no issa. So then you've got to get it to the shear of how hot it is to get burnt. So then it doesn't matter if you only used it at 200 degrees. You can't kasher at 200 degrees. It doesn't burn up at 200 degrees. You have to get it to the shear when it's going to be burnt up. Now, what is that shear? So there are two shiurim. The regular shear is until it gets red hot. That's why it's called libun. Libun means it gets white. And the best way to do that is to do it at night in the dark. So then, because it's for some reason it seems to get redder, starts to get red in the dark before it does in the light. And the other way, so that means get red. Now the other shear is the libun kal, which is mentioned by some of the Rishonim, and wherever Hagala helps, libun kal also helps. So evidently, but can burn up this with libun kal. As a matter of fact, libun kal, if there's only a little bit of mamoshes of issa, will take care of that. The way you can tell is when you put a blowtorch on it or whatever heating method you're using, and you take it off. If it smokes still, it's a sign that it's not completely burnt. So that's why the best thing is to clean it. But if you, let's say you have a self-cleaning oven, which will get rid of all the mamoshes. Now, if it'll be considered kashering or not depends on whether you need that it should get red hot, which it doesn't do, or if it is, libun kal, which is about 500 degrees, maybe a little bit less, which kash nisraf ol mibachutz. That means you put the heat on one side, and on the other side, paper or straw will get singed, will get burnt. So then you can do that. So the Rav Shulchan Aruch says the kashnus of lim kal is good with the yasletas bow. So that's a very big chiddush. No one else seems to agree with that, and so we're not naig to use that. We're not naig to use that, and in the stake, we are very careful. We're not making kashas just for one brand of Yiddishkeit. We try to make kashas for everyone, something that should be acceptable by everyone, or as many types of Yidden as possible. So wherever it's possible, we make sure that it is kosher l'chol hadayos, wherever it's possible. My Rosh Hashiva, Rabban Kotler Zekel Bracha, got this question from a slaughterhouse in California, where they wanted to use warm water to wash off the chickens, because the warmer the water is, the easier the feathers come out. And since the government doesn't like feathers on the chicken, and in some places they're very machmir, so and so it's an extra expense to hire people that the little feathers that the machines left on, that you have to hire people to take them off. So they wanted to use warm water, which is less than yasler as well, in order to heat up these chickens so the feathers should come out easier. They asked that question, and my Rosh Hashiva got the question, and he felt he should answer it, and so he got a big bowl, a metal bowl, which was maybe at least 2 feet across. Maybe it was 26 or 28 inches. They put hot water in it, and they hot water from the faucet, which was maybe about 100 degrees. And then he got 10 bachrim, and they had to keep their hand in the water. And they put one hand in the water, and there was another bach who had a kettle with boiling hot water, and this boiling hot water, he was pouring it in and stirring it with a wooden spoon to make sure that it gets mixed up right away. And as soon as the first bacha couldn't keep his hand in anymore, then he said, we already have to be machmir, because the Gemara says 2 shi'urim of yasleidas bo. One is that you can't keep your hand in, and the other one is that kreser shel tinik nichvis, if the stomach of a baby will get boils on it from this water, that yasleidas bo. So Rashi says, why does the Gemara bring 2 shurim? Because the shear with a hand is not such an accurate shear, because some people can keep the hands in hot water longer and some people can't keep it as long. So therefore it's very hard to determine. But kreser shel tinik nichvis, that gets boils in the on the stomach of a baby, that's a clear shear. But the problem was there were not so many mothers who would give their babies to us for this experiment. So therefore, my Rosh Hashiva feel you have 10 bachrim, so taken at random, we don't know how much they can take a heat. So as soon as the first one took it out, So we said that we have to already be machmir, that's considered yas lesbo. And there was a thermometer in this basin, and this person was doing slowly, put it in the water, and then at 120 degrees, the first bacha pulled out his hand. So therefore, my Rosh Hashiva determined that 120 degrees is yas haledesbo. Now, some people who are machmir on less. As a matter of fact, Rav Moshe says if you want to use yas lesbo lekula, let's say you want to make wine that is cooked, that once it's cooked, if a guy touches it, it doesn't become stam yenim anymore. So Rav Moshe held that once it's yas lesbo, it's enough to be considered cooked. So there he says the shear is 165 degrees, or maybe even more. There's two truths that he doesn't say, but in other words, it's not for sure that that 120 degrees is yas lesbo. It's just that we're machmir by 120 degrees to consider yas lesbo, and that's what we use in the stake for all of our cases, all of our shurim, that we consider yas lesbo 120 degrees Fahrenheit.